From clickorlando.com, this is News 6 at 5:30. This is a News 6 Plus takeover. Here now is Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells with Talk to Tom.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells in the powerful WKMG News 6 you have stumbled upon. Talk to Tom. It's my favorite show of the week. It comes on every Thursday between 5:30 and 6 right here on WKMG and streams 24 hours a day on News 6 Plus. You can always access our show there. It's wonderful. Hey, this started out as just something I would do during storms. Take your questions from you, the viewer, to try to give an answer of what's going on with the storms. It built into something I would do on Facebook every morning. And then my general manager saw it during our last hurricane season again. He went, you know what? We should put that on. So here I am taking questions from you, the viewer. Today, we're going to be talking about a very interesting option to help go green and protect the environment. What I'm talking about in the second half of the show today is a thing called natural burials. Leaders behind this unique option here in Florida say the goal is to reduce our carbon footprint and global warming, or the global weirdness that we always talk about. We'll hear more from them ahead. But first, I want to get back to the basics of Talk to Tom and take some questions from you, the viewers at home. Our first one comes to us from our friend Sauda Jackson. Hey, Sauda.
How do you come up with the predictions for this weather in Florida? Because it is very unpredictable.
Thank you for noticing, Sauda. It is unpredictable. But it's no more unpredictable here, really, than anywhere else in the contiguous 48 states of the USA. When we're doing weather here, we basically do it the way it's done everywhere that does good weather forecasting. There's two different kinds of weather forecasting to speak of. Basically, there is observational weather forecasting, and then there's numerical weather prediction. And that's what I talk about when we talk about models. We'll come to that in a moment. When it comes to observational weather, we're talking about things that you're used to seeing on TV, like satellites and radars. And the enhanced radar that we have, Doppler radar, is one of the biggest step forwards we've had in my entire career, along with the enhancement of the satellite image. When I first started doing weather, those many years ago, I'd get a new satellite about once every hour, or sometimes if it was slow, once every 2 hours. Now we get weather updates from the satellite imagery that are almost real time. It's so fast. Within 5 minutes, we can get a new satellite shot sometimes. So it depends on what we're doing. Also, radar has changed so much that that's part of observational weather. But the other part of observational weather is just the temperature, the relative humidity, barometric pressure, wind speed, and direction. All of those current situations, currents as we call them, are recorded every hour, fed into computer models, and through algorithms, they spit out models or guidelines for us to look at to help us forecast the weather. And the digital graphical presentation of those models has been crazy due to increased computation. The speed of the model doing the algorithm, first of all, has just grown up exponentially. So computer forecasting, numerical weather prediction, is a big part of what we do. If you ever watch, and we'll show, hey, here's the hour-by-hour breakout of how rain is going to move through tomorrow. That's a model. That's an algorithm taking current conditions throughout the atmosphere, boiling it all down, computing, and then giving me a look of where the rain ought to be tomorrow afternoon. It's really, really incredible. And that's how we forecast the weather, through observational weather and through numerical weather prediction. That's a great question. I don't think most people give it a second thought. You know, it's not one of those things where you just wet your finger, hold up for the wind. And I know people like to make fun of meteorological predictions and talk about, the old joke is, oh, God, I wish I could be wrong at my job as much as you are. And it's not really that wrong. It's not. No, sir. Next up, our friend Andrea asks, here's a good one. Since we're already in the 90s, does this mean that in July and August we will be in the triple digits? Quick answer, Andrea, is no. No way. Just because summer started early or we had an early spring does not mean that come summertime, just because we're 10 degrees above normal now, the normal daytime high through a lot of the time when we're doing this in the spring through April and May, Normal daytime highs vary from about 85 to about 88, 89. And we've had days already. I know on April 16th or April 15th, we hit 94 degrees. And that was about 9 degrees above normal. That does not mean we're going to end up in July 9 degrees above normal, because we're going to max out on that. What it means is it all started early. And it means that we're going to have more days stacked on the front side of spring and the end of summer where we're in the 90s. And that's part of global weirdness or global warming or climate change that we're going through. We're hitting the 90s earlier, and they're going away later. So we end up with more days of 90-plus degree readings, more impact, more extreme weather. But no, we won't end up with more days past 100. No, we're not going to go to 104, 105 on a regular basis just because we're hitting 90s now. I hope you understand. All right, next question comes to us from our friend Pam. Hey, Pam.
I live in Georgia, but my daughter lives here. And in her neighborhood, normally there's tons of sandhill cranes running around everywhere. And I love seeing them. And I'm like, now we just got here a couple days ago, and I don't see any of the sandhill cranes. So I'm like, where are they? Are we too chilly up here still for them to have migrated up north? So that was really my question. You know, are we differing temperature-wise this year versus past years?
Great question. I love the sandhill cranes, Pam. I grew up in Middle Tennessee where we didn't really have them. They tell me they migrate through there, but I never saw my first sandhill crane, to my knowledge, until I moved to the coastal plains of South Carolina. The PD region, the coastal plains, do have sandhill cranes there. They migrate through there too. Here in Florida, we have a couple of kinds of sandhill cranes. We have the sandhill crane you're talking about, which is the Florida sandhill crane. I hope that's the one you're talking about. It stays here year round, and they're smaller. They're about 4 feet, 3.5, 4 feet tall. That smaller size sandhill cranes stay, but the bigger sandhill cranes are the ones that fly north, and they go all the way up to the Great Lakes. So us being chillier here would not send them back up north. They normally do take off in May. When we get to the May time of the year, they take off flying, and they go straight kind of on the right-hand side and head up to the Great Lakes all across the northern tier of states up there. So I don't believe that our chilly burst of weather sent them away, and I don't believe that our warm burst did it earlier. I mean, we did get warmer earlier, but they weren't warm up north early, and the birds can usually figure that out. It takes them some time to figure out what's going on. But I think that probably what has happened is that maybe conditions around the neighborhood have changed, and they don't feel safe because they do have predators. You have hawks, eagles, even dogs will go after them sometime, and other land animals will come after their nest and go after their eggs. Interestingly enough, the sandhill cranes only have about a chick or two. They normally lay about either one egg or two eggs, depending on which species we're talking about. So it's not like there's a giant population of them that all of a sudden they explode like rabbits or something. You have a couple and they have like 42 kids a year from now. They end up doing one per year, a good shot per year. They normally live about 20 years in the wild, sometimes 40. In captivity, we've had them live up to like 60 years. But they normally migrate to the same places. So I don't think they migrated early. I wouldn't think so. They may have. I just wonder if conditions around you didn't change that you don't know about. But I love them so much too, so hopefully you'll find them. All right, last question for this part of Talk to Tom. Let's talk about dogs, one of my favorite subjects. Our friend Terry asked, how do dogs sense the weather? I have a medical service dog that alerts me for my asthma and diabetes. The dog senses rain coming, but way before we humans do. Why? Which is a good thing since I lost my sight suddenly 5 years ago. Wow. Okay, Terry, I'm sorry that you're having vision trouble. Dogs are really smart, or at least some of them that we use for these type of things are. And I know my golden doodle is really smart, rings the bell to go outside and all that stuff. But he senses thunderstorms coming too. My veterinarian tells me that they can smell the rain sometimes before you can. When it storms, kicks up the smell. They sometimes smell the rain, and they can sense a change in barometric pressure. So I guess that's what your dog is doing. Either they smell the rain coming, or they sense the change in the barometer, and it makes them uncomfortable, and they start alerting you to what's going on. And of course, they hear wonderfully. So if there's thunder happening, for us, the sound dies out after about 8 or 10 miles. I'm not sure that happens for a dog, because dogs can really get goofy before the thunderstorms show up. So I hope that explains what's going on, either through their sense of hearing or the sense of the change in pressure and electric charge in the air, or the sense of smell of a perhaps approaching rain. Thank you so much for your questions. Anytime you want to get one of your questions answered, just log on to clickorlando.com/talk-to-Tom and submit your question. Please stay with us. Coming up in the next part of our show, we're going to take a closer look at natural burials and why they are good for the environment. Welcome back to Talk to Tom, everyone. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells. Thank you for tuning in for the second half of our program today. Earlier in the show, I took on all of your weather questions. If you want to send in a weather question, just remember, go to clickorlando.com/talk-to-Tom and submit your questions. Right now, we're going to switch gears up and talk about an interesting topic, at least to me, and it's one that will eventually affect us all. It's death. And people don't usually think of death or burials having any impact on the weather. But the way you are buried and remembered can really impact the environment. Joining us now is our new friend, Carlos Gonzalez with Prairie Creek Conservation Cemetery. It's in Gainesville, Alachua County.
That is correct. Yeah, so in north central Florida, in Alachua County. Yeah, exactly. Just adjacent to Payne's Prairie. Yeah, that state preserve.
Payne's Prairie. It's so beautiful. One of my kids, Thing 3 as I call her, is a rising senior at UF. So I drive through there all the time. I'm going to see her. It's beautiful. Although I've never been to a conservation cemetery. Tell me more about that. What is that?
It's actually a tool that helps serve our organization's dual mission of helping people reuniting their bodies with the earth in the most natural way, all the while protecting the land from development. So we utilize natural burial tenets, and I can get into those in just a little bit, but that's in simple form what we're all about.
Okay. Well, tell me this. My family has always done traditional burials. You know, you go, my mother recently passed away. I had to ship her body from Florida to Tennessee on a plane. We buried her the traditional way in a casket. Then had the big thing over her. You know, what's that called? You know, where you seal it around the casket itself after you sink it in the ground. Oh, yeah. How do those negatively impact the environment? Yeah, the vault and the casket. Does that negatively impact the environment? Because I had no clue.
It's a great question. So conventional burial, which is what you're describing, given that we actually think natural burial as being the most traditional form, given it's the most simplest form before the industrialization of funerary burial practices. And so the impact that conventional settings have is quite detrimental and can vary in scope. So it can have an immediate effect on the community there, but also in a broader scale, you know, it can definitely have an effect with, say, deforestation of having certain materials be harvested to create such elaborate caskets, the use of embalming fluids, things that are carcinogenic materials that funeral home workers might deal with, cemetery workers might come across, and that might eventually seep into the ground, just poisoning the earth. Same with concrete and metal, other forms of materials that don't really need to be in the ground. So there's definitely a way where, for ourselves, we're trying to limit the impact on the environment. And so we're trying to educate people about all their disposition choices, regardless if they work with us or not. Part of our mission is just to educate people on conventional burial, conservation burial. Now there's a lot of other green options, aquamation, composting. So it's nice to see the green burial movement continue to grow.
Like if I were to pass away tonight, my family's like, nah, we're not going to embalm him. We're going to do what? What are my options?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of people, when they hear about natural burial, they think, it has to be done quickly. It has to be done expeditiously. But the thing is, people don't realize they have time. In Florida, you either have to have a body be refrigerated, embalmed, or buried within 24 hours. And so if you're wanting to complete a natural burial, so long as your body is refrigerated within that window, you can have a burial that takes place a few days, a couple weeks, 2 to even 3 months after the fact. And it keeps someone's body in great condition. And we've even had viewings of people out in the cemetery of unembalmed bodies. One of the rules that we have to follow with our conservation easement, which is the binding agreement between the local municipality and our land trust partner that helps us with this project, is that we cannot accept embalmed bodies. That way they become one with the earth and avoiding those carcinogens seeping into the soil. So that's one of the tenets that we follow. The others is we don't use grave liners or vaults that are made out of concrete that would then hold a body in limbo. Conventional cemeteries, they use that to maintain their lawn aesthetic, that nice flat surface. But for us, we don't want to do that for a number of reasons. And then the third tenet that we do follow is that we allow people to use biodegradable containers if they wish. A majority of the people that we help, they just use a simple shroud, which can be one, economical. Also, it can be meaningful to them if they have something that they wish to use, such as an heirloom quilt or any other kind of fabric. And actually, it allows the body to be reunited with the earth in a more speedy way. So it allows the decomposition process to happen a lot more quickly. Yeah.
Okay, you were talking about what the county or state wouldn't allow you to do. So you're located in Alachua County, you said. Are you close to campus somewhere or way out in the woods? Where are you? Not that there's not a lot of woodland there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there. I know.
It's a great question. So we're still in Gainesville. We're probably about 15, 20 minutes southeast of the city center. And so we're in between two little small towns, Rochelle and Micanopy. So we serve people here in our immediate community, but we've helped people all throughout the state of Florida, people from Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, Miami, and even from other states. We've had people's bodies be flown to us, given they really want to have this form of disposition choice. So it can be quite meaningful for folks, given their kind of lifestyle, their values, their principles. Because before, people were only really able to select two choices, which was cremation and conventional. Yeah. And so it's nice to now be able to have this option out there for people to choose from. Okay.
Well, when you're talking about what you do versus standard or average, or I don't even know how to address it, what people do today, because normally, like, my family has a plot in Tennessee where everybody goes, big sorrels up, big sorrels over here, and everybody's buried among it, And so we go back on Decoration Sunday, we decorate the graves and we stand there and we talk and all that. Are you talking about a traditional graveyard set up for your group or what? I mean, is there some place the family can still come and pay respects? That sort of thing. Of course.
Yeah. That's another good point to bring up is we ourselves are open every day from dawn until dusk for people to come and visit. And also to enjoy the space for passive recreation. The cemetery itself is 93 acres within a 600-acre preserve that is managed by our land trust partner, Alachua Conservation Trust. It's the only form of memorialization or writing is a small brass marker that's just placed directly over the site. Some of the certification rules we have to follow with a national not-for-profit, Green Burial Council, we are limited as to what we can place out into the environment. We don't want to take away from the natural beauty of the space. So if you were to ever come out and just walk around, you'd be going through a nice Sandhill meadow or through a mesic hammock, a forest. Occasionally you would walk and you might just stumble upon a marker and notice that someone had given back in this way.
Okay. So it's not like it might be hard in the 50, 60 years from now to find exactly where I was.
Well, that's another good thing to bring up. In a conventional setting, it's quite easy with that lawn aesthetic, things that are being mowed every other day, which also has an effect on the environment. It would be tough for people, especially since it's in an environment that is dynamic and ever changing. A tool that we do provide for families is a GPS tracking system. So once a plot is used for a burial, then someone can type in their loved one's name, and whatever mapping system they have on their smart device, it'll guide them directly to the site. So that's something that we can then help people with. Yeah.
All right. Well, last question then, because I'm fascinated by the whole concept, because now I'm open to everything. Let's talk about the cost. Is it more economic than what we now consider our traditional way of doing things, or the popular way of doing things?
Well, it can vary. It can range. For us, I believe we're the most economical natural burial option in the state of Florida for just cemetery services of opening and closing the grave. It's just $2,000. And so usually people might need to contract with a funeral home that can have an extra set of fees on there, or they can go another route where they themselves become an acting funeral director. And that's something that's called a home funeral. And everyone in the state of Florida has the right to tend to their own dead. And so that can actually just, supersede and avoid that extra expense when you're dealing with a funeral parlor. It takes a lot more planning. It takes a lot more coordination. But it can be meaningful for folks to do that for themselves. And we complete on average about 5 home funerals a year. And that's where, again, families do everything themselves, from transportation, cooling at home, and then also working with their local health department to get all the pertinent documents for completing a burial at our cemetery.
Wow. Carlos Gonzalez coming to us today from Prairie Creek Conservation Cemetery. Carlos, this was fascinating for me, man. Thank you for taking the time out. And if anyone wants to contact you, we'll have your information up on Talk to Tom. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Of course, we appreciate the opportunity.
All right. That's it for Talk to Tom this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. You can watch us every Thursday right here on WKMG News 6 between 5:30 and 6 p.m. and catch us anytime streaming worldwide on News 6 Plus. See ya.